Penguin Random House Audio presents The World of All Souls, the complete guide to a discovery of witches, Shadow of Night, and the Book of Life, by Deborah Harkness. Read for you by Saskia Maarleveld, with Deborah Harkness, Steve West, and Jennifer Ikeda.
Dear reader, welcome, or welcome back, into a world of demons, humans, vampires, and witches, where a reluctant witch and a 1,500-year-old vampire discover the secrets left in a mysterious manuscript. When I started writing the books in 2008, I had no idea that so many readers around the globe would take Diana, Matthew, and all the other bishops and de Clairmonts into their hearts and minds. Today, I share the creatures in the All Souls trilogy with readers from Australia to Vietnam and Finland to Brazil. This book is for all of you. My curious, engaged readers always have more questions than I can possibly answer on social media, via email, or at a book signing. We've written this book with you in mind. We delved into my file cabinets and notebooks. We mined the stories for hidden nuggets of arcane lore and historical information. We've transformed some of what was in my imagination when I wrote the trilogy into something that could be shared. As you explore the pages of this book, you'll discover a treasure trove of information about the creatures and events of the trilogy. This companion volume gives you a chance to have a good rummage through my inspiration archive. Though some of your questions will be answered, we hope that they are replaced with new insights and connections. And as you follow the threads through history, legend, music, magic, and science, we hope that you feel a new sense of affinity for the characters and stories. Enjoy your journey of discovery or rediscovery into the world of all souls. Best wishes, Deborah.
In conversation with Deborah Harkness, the inspiration for all souls. What drives your fascination with the past?
Ever since I was a small child, I loved history. My parents took us to historical sites when I was growing up outside of Philadelphia, and I loved dressing up in long skirts and imagining I lived in the 18th century. After my first trip to England to visit my mother's family in the 1970s, I fell in love with 15th and 16th century history, pushing further back into the past. I think those early experiences visiting historical places and reading about them before and after made history seem alive to me. I could imagine myself into colonial Williamsburg or the Revolutionary War or Warwick Castle or Speke Hall. Once the past was a living, breathing place in my imagination, it never lost its fascination for me. The more I read, the more important it was that I know why people in the past did what they did. I've always been interested in what motivated people and how the particular conditions of their lives and experiences shaped those desires.
What triggered you to turn from your work as an academic historian to writing a fictional tale of a witch, a vampire, and a lost manuscript?
At the start of a family vacation in Puerto Vallarta, I walked through the airport and saw a big display of books about witches and vampires. I had just finished a book about the history of scientific inquiry in Elizabethan London and had been reading virtually nothing published after 1610 for years. So this move into popular culture was something of a surprise to me. Looking at the jackets, I was struck with a couple of simple questions. If there really are witches and vampires, as these books suggested, what on earth do they do for a living, and why don't I know any of them? When I started writing the story, I really started by imagining a possible answer to those questions. I had spent 6 or 8 weeks on it and had 9 chapters completed before I even told anyone else that I was working on something strange. Though I hadn't seriously considered writing fiction since 10th grade, it appeared that I was writing a novel.
Could you outline the initial journey of the All Souls trilogy coming into the hands of readers? How did you get from the spark of an idea to a published book and the spread of the trilogy worldwide?
It took me about 9 months to complete the first full draft of the book. There was something very gestational about the process, and it was a big baby, more than 1,100 pages. It then took me 3 months, essentially my summer vacation from teaching, to carve 350 pages from it. I had a lot of help with that process from Lisa Haltonen, who's one of the collaborators on this book. After it was slightly more manageable in size, my agent Sam Stoloff put it out to potential publishers on a Thursday in September 2009. I got the news that Viking were interested after a class on Monday. I was sitting on a bicycle rack outside my lecture hall, and by the following Tuesday, they had purchased the book. That call came almost exactly a year after I started writing A Discovery of Witches. Many people told me this kind of thing never happens, and as far as I'm concerned, it's proof that there's always been more than a bit of pixie dust and magic surrounding the All Souls trilogy. It was surreal to have the book sell so quickly and so soon after I'd started the writing process. After that, Viking took the book to the International Book Fair in Frankfurt, Germany, where it sold to other publishers around the world. Happily, I was so busy working on the next book in the trilogy, Shadow of Night, and teaching my classes that I had time to let it all sink in slowly. Otherwise, I think the sudden success might have been overwhelming, not to mention daunting.
The writing of All Souls. As a professor of history and a person who juggles a wide range of interests, how do you balance writing with everything else in your life?
Sometimes balance just isn't possible. It's kind of a relief to say that. We all strive for it, and maybe it seems as if I've got some magic formula to achieve it, but actually I have good days and bad days just like everybody else. As for my formula, it's changed from book to book. When I was working on A Discovery of Witches, writing fiction was a very small part of my life. I wrote for the first few hours every day from around 6 to 8 a.m., and then I did my full-time job at the university. Once A Discovery of Witches sold to the publisher, I became an author. Then I had 2 jobs, and I also had to find time to keep writing. That's when creativity was necessary. Shadow of Night, interestingly, was written almost entirely at night, from 10 p.m. to midnight after the hullabaloo of the day had all died down. I wrote the Book of Life whenever I could. Life was very hectic by then. Now, as I move into writing other books, some of them even about the bishops and de Clairmonts, I'm trying to get back to the kind of routine I had with The Discovery of Witches. That's easier said than done, however. Everyone hearing this knows how hard it is to carve out quiet time for yourself and to give that time the same importance in your busy day as any other commitment. We always seem to shortchange ourselves in an effort to get everything else done. I try to get enough rest, enough exercise, and to eat properly, something we all need to do. At this point, I've learned that I really can't write for more than a few hours a day. I'm better with shorter, more focused writing stints. I can write almost anywhere, including my office at home, at the dining room table, in cafes, and my shared office space in town, on planes, in hotel rooms, and at libraries. Probably the weirdest spot I've ever written was in my car at a highway rest stop on the I-5 in California. I was getting away for a writing week, and I just had to pull over and put something on the page.
Because you'd been an academic writer for many years before you turned to fiction, what surprised or delighted or frustrated you most about writing a novel?
What surprised me most is that you're not in total control of your story, or at least I'm not. The characters seem to have a life of their own, and sometimes you just need to buckle your seatbelt and go along for the ride. This was brought home to me in the very first book when, with no plans or warning, Matthew got into the car, drove to Scotland.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?